What up? 大家好，我是锁头。Yo, again, thank you guys so much for the donations. And last night's midnight live stream had almost 30,000 viewers, and where over 500 people signed up for our online English course. And most importantly, a huge shout out to all you guys who shared this video to your friends to help more and more people know what is going down in this trial. 好机车粉丝，你们真的太屌了。So, the past 2 days saw Amber Heard fighting back, calling witness after witness to testify about Johnny's character. And when I went through all of it, my first impression was, that's all you got, girl? But then I realized there's actually a lot of dots to be connected. So I plucked out the most important dots and separated them into 2 categories, which we will cover in 2 videos. So in this one, we're gonna cover the professional testimonies, which I believe may be the biggest threat to Johnny Depp's defamation suit. And we're also gonna find out how in the hell the media fucked up reporting the Disney rep's testimony on Johnny Depp. Now, our first clip comes from Johnny Depp's former business manager of 15 years, who was actually introduced by Depp's sister. And having known him for so long, he shed some light on Johnny Depp's struggles with alcohol, drugs, money, and also his alleged verbal abuse.
You indicated that you were having more difficulty arranging meetings. What, if any, role did increased use of alcohol or drugs have on your ability to be able to arrange and engage in meetings with Mr. Depp?
There were stretches of time when it appeared clear to me that the use of alcohol and drugs was a daily event. And so there were obviously various times when I needed to communicate directly with Mr. Depp. And so some of my conversations with the people I've described involved finding good days and good parts of days when he and I could engage in conversations that he and I needed to engage in, where I knew he would be clear-minded and so forth.
All right. So were there any periods that you can recall between 2010 and the end of your relationship with Mr. Depp that Mr. Depp had any periods of sobriety?
There were certainly stretches of time when he seemed better. There were days and weeks there were stretches of time when he was better, and I couldn't tell you dates, but there were stretches of time when he was better, and more often not.
You said that Mr. Depp was sometimes his responses seemed to be disproportionate, and that he would be very, very upset. What, if any, observations did you make about Mr. Depp expressing anger?
When he was angry at someone, he would let them know. Was that sent in my direction? Very rarely, but at times, certainly on a handful of occasions in 2015, he seemed to become increasingly less filtered, and increasingly, my experience was that Mr. Depp became increasingly less constrained, less concerned with whether he was going to upset someone's feelings, or just increasingly comfortable venting in an aggressive way when he was upset or disappointed about something. And it increased over time and increased to the point where our relationship began to be impacted in 2015 and was eventually obviously severed in 2016.
Did you observe any increase in Mr. Depp's expressions of anger and upset associated with any increase in financial difficulties or having to discuss financial difficulties?
His financial circumstances in 2015 had reached a point where I was extremely concerned and was on a very, very regular basis expressing that concern. And it seemed as I increased my level of expressing that concern, there was anger directed in my direction. And so my warnings in 2015 that we were in very dire financial circumstances were not met very favorably.
Joe Mendel's testimony makes it pretty clear that Johnny Depp's personal life was greatly affecting his professional life. And although Joe didn't testify that he physically abused anybody, his verbal abuse, along with the next witness testimony, just might be the key into understanding why Johnny's career took a downward spiral. Johnny Depp's former talent agent, who was with him for 30 years before and after he became Captain Jack Sparrow, paints a pretty brutal picture about how his behavior affected not only his reputation in Hollywood, but possibly even his future with the Disney Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
He became the biggest star in the world.
Do you take any credit for that?
Yes.
What is your understanding of the reason why Mr. Depp terminated you?
I really don't know. All I know is he terminated essentially everyone in his life, so I was along for the ride, I guess. His unprofessional behavior, I think that covers a multitude of things.
And that's going to be my next question. What do you mean by Mr. Depp's unprofessional behavior in the last 10 years of your representation?
Showing up late to set consistently on virtually every movie. I would get yelled at. I never said to him, "You're a difficult client." I never used those words, but I was very honest with him and said, "You've got to stop doing this. This is hurting you." And it did.
Even with your speaking to Mr. Depp about him consistently showing up late for set, did he correct that behavior during that last 10 years?
No.
And what types of difficulties did that cause for Mr. Depp?
Well, initially, crews loved him because he was always so great with the crew, but crews don't love sitting around for hours and hours and hours waiting for the star of the movie to show up. And it also got around town. I mean, people talk. It's a small community. And it made people reluctant to use him toward the end.
And when you say toward the end, was that toward the end of your representation of Mr. Depp?
Yes.
Do you recall difficulties that Mr. Depp had during Pirates 5?
Yes.
Did you go to Australia at any point during the filming of Pirates 5?
Twice.
Yes. Was there something that caused you to determine that that was the time you should get on a plane and fly to Australia?
Yes.
What do you recall that being?
The complaints about what I stated earlier about the lateness, not showing up to talk to him about it.
When you were talking earlier about there being a change in Mr. Depp's behavior over the last 10 years of your representation and it becoming more unprofessional, was part of the unprofessional behavior his increased use of alcohol and drugs?
Yes.
Was part of the unprofessional behavior that you witnessed increasing over the last 10 years of your representation of Mr. Depp his increasing anger and tendency towards violence?
No.
Was it your observation that Mr. Depp had fundamental issues with anger?
Yeah.
So once again, you have another key industry professional, someone who's close to Johnny, testifying that his inability to keep his shit together was sending him on a path to self-destruction. But even with a combined 45 years of professional experience working with Johnny Depp, neither one of them claimed that his problems caused him to be physically abusive. Now, this next witness is probably considered the most controversial of all the ones that testified because he is at the center of Amber Heard's $100 million defamation suit against Johnny Depp. He is the man Amber accuses of starting the smear campaign against her, costing her film roles, sponsorships, and destroying her reputation. And when he posted evidence refuting Amber Heard's abuse allegations, he was banned from Twitter for violating their private information policy. Not only that, but he was also thrown off Depp's case by the judge himself for leaking information to the press. Needless to say, we were all dying to hear what this guy was going to reveal in his testimony.
Tell me!
And I'm guessing you are too. So let's have a look, shall we?
Did you enter into a written representation agreement with Mr. Depp when you began your representation?
I would instruct the witness not to answer that question. That calls for attorney-client privilege.
Okay, I follow the instruction.
Have you entered into more than one representation agreement with Mr. Depp during the course of your representation?
Same instruction not to answer. You can't answer that without disclosing attorney-client communications.
Has the attorney-client relationship between you and Mr. Depp been severed at any point between October 2016 and the present?
Would instruct the witness not to answer that question on the grounds that you can't answer that question without disclosing attorney-client communications.
Okay, I accept the instruction.
And you have charged Mr. Depp for your advice, correct?
I would instruct the witness not to answer that question. Can't answer that without disclosing attorney-client communications.
I accept the instruction.
Has Mr. Depp paid you for your advice?
I do instruct the witness not to answer on the grounds of attorney-client privilege. You can't answer that question without disclosing your communications with Mr. Depp.
I accept the instruction.
Turns out he didn't have to say anything at all, but I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing more of him whenever Amber continues her $100 million defamation suit. Now, this next testimony is what several media outlets reported as a game changer in Johnny Depp's defamation suit, because it somehow shows that Disney in no way considered Amber's op-ed whenever they fired him. This person is the production executive at Disney. That means that her job is to make sure that any movie that comes out makes money. She is in charge of the business side of filmmaking. So, what exactly did the Disney production executive say?
Were you involved in the gathering of the documents responsive to the documents subpoenaed to Disney?
Yes, I did provide some documentation to Alec and his group from our production group.
Do you recall seeing in any of the documents you reviewed, do you recall seeing an op-ed written by Ms. Heard?
No.
Do you recall any document that referred in any manner to the op-ed written by Ms. Heard?
I would say no.
Fun fact, the word recall is just a more formal, more legal way to ask someone if they remember something. In fact, recall and remember can be used interchangeably. So when Tina Newman says that she doesn't recall, that doesn't mean that she didn't see a document, it means that she doesn't remember. So maybe the news outlets need a new translator.
Did you have any discussions with anyone at Disney about the impact of the op-ed by Ms. Heard on the relationship between Disney and Mr. Depp, including considering Mr. Depp for any work with Disney, any future Pirates of the Caribbean role, or a different production?
No.
Okay, so here's the thing. Tina Newman said that she provided some documents from her production group, but that doesn't mean she provided all of the documents. And she also said that she didn't have any discussions regarding the op-ed and its effect on who they were going to choose for the movie. But that doesn't necessarily mean that no discussions were held, right? And then there's the other part of the testimony, which the media outlets somehow forgot about.
Do you know whether Mr. Depp is being considered for a role in Pirates 6?
No.
Does that mean you don't know one way or the other, or he is not being considered?
I don't know one way or the other. That decision doesn't fall within my job responsibility. It's above my head. Like I said, I just know that it's a project that's possibly in development at the studio. That's it. Like I explained earlier, my knowledge and what my job functionality is at the studio, at plateaus, and there are people that I work under, and those particular persons may or may not have more knowledge, but I can't speak on behalf of them.
So let me put what this woman said in very plain English. But first, today's episode is brought to you by the popular English term jack shit, which is commonly used by us Southern Americans to describe how much we have of something or how much we know about a particular topic, which is absolutely nothing. So when the Disney rep said this,
my knowledge and what my job functionality is at the studio, at plateaus, and there are people that I work under, and those particular persons may or may not have more knowledge.
What she's saying is, I know jack shit. But there was one very important question in that interview that did get answered.
Would Disney entertain paying Mr. Depp more than $300 million and provide him with more than a million alpacas to be able to obtain his services for any future Pirates of the Caribbean role?
No.
Hey, a big shout out to Amber Heard's lawyer for really trying on this one.
I'm trying.
So, these testimonies that we heard may cause a problem for Johnny Depp, as it adds fuel to the idea that he is the one that wrecked his career rather than Amber Heard. And his team is already fighting an uphill battle in that regard. But we still have one more week left of testimonies, and with 8 hours left on their clock, Amber Heard's team is running out of time. And with 18 hours on Team Depp's clock, they've got plenty of time to strategize and mount their comeback. So in the next video, we're gonna look at the personal testimonies that Amber called from people who are actually living with Johnny Depp. And I'm also gonna show you something so outrageous that it was cut from the deposition because it could not be admitted as evidence in the trial. So until tomorrow, remember to like, comment, and share with your friends, and I'll see you on the flip side. Peace!